Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving right into an incredibly fascinating and, honestly, deeply complex theory recently laid out by financial commentator André Gide. It's a theory that sits right at this wild intersection of an ancient prophecy and a massive modern-day technological transition. We're looking at what Gide calls a rapid shift from the industrial age into the intelligent age, a totally new era built on data, knowledge, and just unprecedented connectivity. But the big question the source poses is this: is this convergence just the natural evolution of technology, or is it actually a manufactured transition designed to centralize power?
A mark will be required, placed on your right hand or your forehead, and without that mark, you cannot buy and you cannot sell. Now, you might recognize that. It's a quote from Revelation 13:17, written nearly 2,000 years ago. For most of history, this concept, often called the mark of the beast, was just viewed purely as a symbolic metaphor about power and control. But as the source material highlights, some people are looking at the modern world right now and wondering if our current technological leap actually makes this exact kind of absolute financial restriction literally possible. Gide uses this ancient text as a really powerful framing device to examine some very real systems that are being built today.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down today. First, we'll outline the digital control grid itself. Then, we'll dig into its three main pillars: programmable money, digital identity, and surveillance hardware. After that, we'll look at the economic catalysts driving this, before wrapping up by asking, is this prophecy or coincidence? Let's get into it.
Part 1, the digital control grid. To really grasp this, we need to understand the overarching framework that Gide claims is actively being constructed by central planners.
The source actually bases this architectural breakdown on a framework popularized by Catherine Austin Fitts, a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Housing. According to her analysis, this grid is a theoretical system that basically smashes together three distinct parts: programmable currency, biometric identity, and physical surveillance hardware. And the theory suggests that when you fully integrate these three elements, central planners wouldn't even need traditional laws or police or courts to enforce compliance. Just imagine a system where they don't have to arrest you to enforce the rules. They can simply restrict your access to vital aspects of daily society based entirely on your behavior.
Moving to pillar number 1, programmable money. Let's isolate the source's major concerns regarding the rapid evolution of digital currency.
Think about the physical cash in your wallet right now. It's totally neutral. It doesn't care what you're buying, it certainly doesn't expire, and for the most part, you can spend it completely anonymously. Programmable money, though, that is a completely different ballgame. Because it's digital and issued on a blockchain, rules can literally be fused right into the currency itself. As the source points out, your digital dollars could theoretically be programmed to expire after a certain date, or be geofenced so they only work within your specific state. They could even be restricted from buying certain items, like specific types of energy or food, just to enforce compliance with, say, carbon policies.
And Gide points out that the infrastructure for this is absolutely not science fiction. It's being deployed right now. He highlights the 2025 Genius Act in the United States, which officially creates the regulatory framework for stablecoins, essentially digital dollars. According to the source, buried right inside this act is a strict requirement that stablecoin issuers connect to a Treasury Department pipe that enforces Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering rules. This creates the exact legal and technical plumbing needed to eventually tie our financial transactions into a behavior-based social credit system.
30 million. That is a staggering number. To put that into perspective, that is the exact number of flights and train trips that were blocked in just a single year under China's existing social credit system. The source uses this as a proven, real-world model of what actually happens when your financial and social access gets tied to a behavioral score. If you post something online the government dislikes or even just jaywalk across the street, your score drops, and suddenly, no way, you can't buy a plane ticket or get a mortgage. The theory warns that programmable money makes implementing this exact kind of restriction incredibly efficient.
Which brings us to pillar number 2, digital identity. Because let's be real, programmable money with all those specific rules is completely useless unless the system knows exactly who is making the transaction.
Get this. Over 18 million people have already voluntarily signed up for a global digital ID. They've done this through a company co-founded by Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, using a device called the Orb. It is literally a silver sphere that scans the iris of your eye to capture your unique biometric signature. And in exchange for letting them scan your eyeball, you receive a World ID, which is a permanent digital proof that you are in fact a real human being.
Now, the source lays out two very different ways to view this development.
The optimistic view is that this is a genuinely useful, highly convenient solution to a massive modern problem. We live in a world flooded with AI and deepfakes, so platforms like Zoom, DocuSign, or even Tinder desperately need a way to verify that you're actually a human. But the pessimistic view? It warns that millions of people are voluntarily surrendering their most irreplaceable biometrics to private companies. Think about it. You can get a new password, but you absolutely can't get new eyeballs. The huge danger highlighted by the source is that once this biometric database exists, it lays down permanent, irrevocable infrastructure that governments could later use to deny you basic human rights if you fall out of compliance.
All right, moving to pillar number 3, surveillance hardware. Because even with digital money and digital IDs, rules still require real-world physical monitoring to function at any kind of scale.
To anchor this massive concept of real-world data collection, the source highlights one of the major companies building this infrastructure, Palantir. They are a data analytics company that fuses unimaginable volumes of data, from satellite images all the way down to everyday spreadsheets, into central platforms used by militaries, governments, and financial systems. But here is the fascinating catch that JIC emphasizes: the company's namesake. If you're a J.R.R. Tolkien fan, you know the Palantir are ancient magical seeing stones in Lord of the Rings that act as the all-seeing eyes of Middle-earth. But in the lore, the Dark Lord Sauron uses these stones not just to watch people, but to manipulate them by showing them only what he wants them to see. The source suggests this heavy symbolism of absolute observation and manipulation is pretty hard to ignore.
But it goes way beyond just data software. The source details an incredibly massive physical tracking network being built all around us. Just think about your daily routine. You've got cell towers pinging your location every 400 to 700 feet for constant triangulation. You've got indoor Wi-Fi tracking that can actually locate you inside your own house. Add to that legally mandated remote kill switches in all new cars sold in America that monitor your driving and can remotely disable your vehicle. The source explains this is an incomprehensible amount of data processing designed purely for spatial control. So what happens when you synthesize these 3 independent technologies? You get the complete picture JIC is warning about. One unified system of control. Step 1, your biometric ID permanently verifies exactly who you are. Step 2, the surveillance hardware and data fusion track exactly where you are and what you do. And Step 3, your programmable money enforces your compliance in real time. If you step out of line, the system doesn't even need to send a police officer to arrest you. They simply turn a dial, and suddenly your money doesn't work at the gas station, or your digital ID denies you entry at the airport.
Section 5. The economic catalyst. We've talked a lot about the what, but we really need to talk about the why. Why is this massive, coordinated infrastructure being rushed into place right now? Well, the source shifts focus to a macroeconomic crisis that's acting as the ultimate catalyst.
125%. That is where the U.S. debt-to-GDP ratio has crossed right now. JIC explains that the U.S. government is running completely unsustainable deficits, and at the exact same time, crucial foreign demand for U.S. Treasury bonds is falling because nations are trusting the U.S. financial system less and less. And this creates an absolutely impossible trap for central bankers. If they go with option A and raise interest rates to defend the value of the dollar, the bond market just completely collapses under the weight of all that debt. But if they go with option B and cut rates to save the bond market, the dollar rapidly loses its purchasing power. The source claims that the market is currently betting central planners will choose option B. They'll devalue the currency to save the bonds. But to actually pull that off without destroying the whole system, they desperately need a brand new buyer for American debt.
So here is where it all connects. The source theorizes that central planners are pushing so hard for digital stablecoins, not just for behavioral control, but as the ultimate financial bailout. By putting digital dollars directly onto the smartphones of hundreds of millions of people worldwide, they are essentially exporting U.S. debt right into the global retail market. Why does that work? Because stablecoins are essentially just treasury bills wrapped up inside a smartphone app. It props up demand for treasuries, it preserves dollar dominance, and it simultaneously moves the entire globe onto a highly trackable, programmable ledger.
Finally, Section 6, prophecy or coincidence, which brings us full circle, right back to that ancient text we started with, and forces us to look closely at the times we're living through.
The source leaves us with this really heavy question: prophecy or coincidence? Are we simply watching a bunch of independent technological advancements and macroeconomic policies naturally aligned to solve modern problems? Or is this unprecedented convergence of programmable money,
biometric identification, and surveillance hardware actually a coordinated transition, one that perfectly mirrors a 2,000-year-old warning about a system where no one can buy or sell without compliance? The infrastructure is definitely being built right in front of us, but how it will ultimately be used? Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and find out.